when they move in, it's such a feeling of success until you go in and you find the swarms as big.
There's no DPI restrictions on this sort of thing?
There is in the purple. If you catch it in that, I've asked them for clarification, they haven't provided clarification, but I believe it would be the same as collecting swarm. It should be destroyed.
The big advantage though is it doesn't leave your property and go into your neighbour's house.
That is a big advantage. It's a big deal having bees in your house. Yeah, thousands of dollars worth of repair, typically.
And angry neighbours.
And angry neighbours, really angry neighbours.
So you could destroy those bees and still reuse your equipment in the purple zone?
You can, because it's in the same site. Yeah, it's just if your hive goes into the neighbour's yard, if your swarm goes into the neighbour's yard, you're running in there, collecting them, bringing them back. You know, if you're using a swarm trap, you can reuse it as long as it doesn't leave your property. Yeah. Cool.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But if you make a swarm trap out of a box of, say, eight frame box plus an ideal, and you leave a few frames or a couple of frames in there with the wax in them, will that attract wax moth or hive beetle?
So you're using the frames with foundation on them?
New foundation?
No.
It should, okay.
No, it won't. But you may get wax moth tracking over the top, but rarely will they actually consume it. Okay, so it's like so rare. I store huge amounts of frames every year, and I've only about one, and that was a really hungry wax moth. Yeah. So no, ultimately it's fine.
And is that one of the reasons why you need foundation frames rather than drawn frames?
The law is the reason. Okay. Yeah. So it's a biosecurity risk.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a biosecurity risk, and this isn't a Varroa thing. This is just standard. We can't leave hive material out. But absolutely another reason for that.
Okay.
It's just what you want is the smell of old hive in there, and you can get that from just the propolis on an old frame, and that works really, really well. Yeah.
And they don't attract small hive beetle. Well, that's been my observation.
What wax frames?
No, the traps.
No.
Just frames. The small hive beetle aren't interested.
Not at all. There's nothing there for them.
It must be the smell of the bees that attracts the small hive beetle, rather than the old frame.
Yeah, works really well. We do this. So this is a swarm trap that's set up. We're talking to the DPI about it as well, trying to get it sorted, as well as Ku-ring-gai Council are interested in using this as well. So we set them up for $220. And if the swarm moves into the trap, we'll remove the trap box, replace it with a newly baited trap with Swarm Commander, free of charge for 3 years in the bee zone. Practically speaking, we do it for longer than that. So practically speaking, we will, if you call us up, we'll remove and replace it. The advantage for us of doing that is that they're made to just close. So we just go, close it up, take it off the tree and hang basically a brand new one. Okay? I would probably suggest with you guys as well, if you're setting up a swarm trap, it's a good way to do it, because it means you can move it during the day. Typically speaking, when you set a swarm trap up, you're going to want to be 2.5 metres, entrance of 2.5 metres. And south facing usually works best. Feels strange because we normally want to orientate our hives north facing. 9 out of 10 of the wild hives that I deal with are south facing. Don't know why they do it, they just like it. So if you're doing that, it's good to be able to remove it and relocate it pretty quickly. Okay, so those dials are really great for that.
Do you ever catch native bees in those?
No. Wrong size. Yeah, wrong size trap, wrong size hole. It's really hard to catch native bees. Really, really tricky because of the way they swarm. So native bees swarm in an entirely different way. They'll set up they would build a new hive before they swarm. They're far more organised.
Is that 400?
Huh?
What size hole is it? 400?
25.
25, yeah. 1 inch.
Yeah, it's a one inch, because these are built to, basically Tom Seeley in the States did a lot of research into this.
Okay, because the trap one is 400.
The which one?
The trap, they can catch the wild bees, the poisoning.
The bait station. Yeah, bait station, yeah.
Sorry, that's why I asked.
Yeah, I think that's based on mammalian.
Cleaning, cleaning, all that, but just, okay, fine. Thank you.
Yeah, you'll find that these absolutely get, like when they move in, it's just like this massive cluster, and then they sort of freak out and crawl in. But yeah, it works quite well for it. Yeah, it's a good size. You can go less. In the States, they actually put a nail vertically through it to stop other things getting in there, but we don't sort of have the same other things that seem to want to use that box. I mean, the only thing I can think of is microbats that would be interested in it, but I don't think there's any way you could really exclude microbats comfortably while still making it appealing for bees. And I think it's also the wrong size for microbats.
So is that 40 litres?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's basically a 10-frame box. So if you see the cut away, it's like a 5-frame and then another. There's effectively enough for a full bed straight underneath. So it's a pretty big box.
Yeah.
You know, but we do it so that we can actually get it up and get it down.
It would only be there for a short period of time.
We leave it permanent. When people get them, we usually leave them permanently in trees. You can just use it in spring if you wish, but I set it up basically and leave it like a possum hole.
So at the meeting where we were told that the 40 mil was the hole,
Yeah.
that was so that it wouldn't attract other natural
Yes.
life. So this really goes against that.
No, so there are two different purposes. Okay, so the bait stations, they're trying to stop mammals, particularly birds, getting in and eating the poison.
Yeah.
What we're doing is we're trying to stop birds getting in there, but still allowing bees to get in, but not to feed. So we're not in a congregation issue. So if you set up a 40 mil hole, that's typically bigger than you'd see in most wild beehives because it's a big space to patrol and manage. Bees like to move in to smaller holes, not in trees. Statistically the most likely place I will find a beehive is behind a gyprock wall, and they will enter in a gap in the bottom of the window frame, which is enough for one bee to enter, roughly. And that's a water gap. So we're talking about sort of different things. But if bees were around the area and I filled up a wall full of honey or sugar syrup, then there would be massive congregation issues and congestion issues for them trying to get in that gap. So with feeder stations, they're trying to get huge numbers of bees in a very short period of time. In this instance, I'm trying to strike that balance between getting bees in, but also managing a normal hive entrance.
But if you want to build one and you want to make a long, narrow slot
Like a hive.
between two bricks where I've seen them go in,
Yeah.
three buckles, do it that
Go
way.
for it.
Just you can't buy circular shut-offs.
Yeah, it also helps doing
They
that.
constantly work out it's the cubic space,
Yeah,
and you can have it as a triangle, a slit,
it doesn't
a
matter.
cross. It doesn't matter, but it's the cubic area.
Yeah,
What we do in Australia is 40, whereas over there are inches or something like that.
yeah, an inch. Yeah, it's basically an inch and a quarter.
And you could have an inch,
An inch and a bit.
you'd have it long,
Yeah,
and a quarter inch high, and
yeah,
it's
exactly.
quarter inch long. Yeah.
Yeah, but the feeder stations are to get huge numbers of bees in as quickly as they can.
A lot of feeding ranges.
And if you've ever overfed your bees, it's exciting when they go for it. Like it is frantic. Like you could get 20,000 bees coming in and feeding. It's wild. Very, very cool. Yeah. It's very cool. Yeah, the biggest issue is drowning when they do that. But yeah,
Almost like robbing.
so different application, but similar concept.
It's like when they rob a hive, it's frantic.
It's frantic, yeah, and you can see them. So the big issue, though, one of the big issues we encounter overfeeding is that bees will fight each other over a resource. So so the holes you'll see in the feeder stations as well, it's not just one hole. The holes are all the way around the feeder station. Because if they made any kind of scarcity for that resource, the bees would fight over the resource. So you'll see occasionally on Facebook, particularly under blue gum, like blue gum trees, that people say, "Oh, there's heaps of bees dying on the ground, and you know they're all I don't know why, and then they'll talk about poisons, they'll talk about this and that, but if they look up, they'll see either the two are, blue gums are one, but the biggest one is palm trees. So if you've got palm trees, you know, with the really big white flowers, they fight, you can watch them fighting over that resource because there's scarcity. So yeah, those holes are able to let them come in and feed and don't open feed in the purple zone. Yeah.
Would it be a really bad idea to put one of those next to your house?
What was that, sorry?
Would it be a bad idea to put one of those next to your house?
Well, you'll no. A lot of people do it. The thing that will happen is you'll catch swarms. So it's not bad. You'll catch your own swarms as well. There are other ways of catching swarms out there. This one is the best because it contains it, and you kind of decide where it goes. But the same is true as if you use an 8-frame box and an ideal super. As long as you've got somewhere about 2.5 metres, top of garage, something like that, they're fine. Yeah, it doesn't need to say bee rescue on it or whatever. It can just be the one thing I would do is put your hive reg on it, somewhere discreet, but just so you comply with the rules when they do move in, because then all of a sudden it's a hive. Okay, but yeah, it's good to have them around. All of my apiaries have these. Even the ones in the purple zone have these. If they move into the ones in the purple zone, they're destroyed. But if they move into the ones in the blue zone, then we just have caught our own swarms and we've stopped them pestering neighbours and we've kept our bees. Yeah, you'll find that you actually typically get more than one hive a year from it. Yeah, it's really good. All right, and that's it. Sorry, it was really long. I know because there's a lot. There's just a lot in there, but I'll make sure that we get them.
Andrew, just a quick question.
Yeah, any questions?
The supers from the red zone.
Yeah.
They stay there until they tell us we can have bees again?
Well, you can store for 21 days or freeze for free at minus 15 degrees. And then they become empty honey supers according to the law, and then you can move them.
So we could move those boxes down here into the blue zone if we wanted to.
Yeah.
And same with our bee suits, having been washed and stored. And
the problem with bee suits is that they only carve out for moving things is empty honey supers.
Right.
Everything else is question mark. So the best thing to do is to get a permit. And again, I can give you Brett's number. He's really good. He's really practical. But that's probably your best bet.
So the queen excluder stays up, no matter what. Sorry, it stays up in the red zone.
No, you can bring all of this back, but you just need a permit to have to bring your base.
But nothing in the group as such. It's gone.
It can. The thing is, everything can. If it's frozen for 3 days or stored for 21. Yeah.
They say when they're talking about the coal that the remover they put another hive in to see if the area is all clear. With no
in the red zone.
In the red zone.
Yeah.
And the lady that lost 3 hives told me that she'd get hold of one of those test hives and put it on your property.
Yeah.
And then you know what's going on properly. And then they haven't. And after that, are they progressing so that people can put hives back in and start again or not?
No. So the only time you'll be allowed back in is for 3 years after they declare it mite free.
So that test hive's going to stay there for...
No, it's irrelevant. The test hive's irrelevant. It could die. It will likely die because those test hives are made to test not whether there's Varroa, but to test the efficacy of the bait station. So they're hoping those bees will fly to the bait station and die. Yeah. So that's when they say test, they're sacrificial hives.
Okay. So it's the same for pollination up around Port Macquarie, where they've got a red zone.
Cops.
Blueberries and other berries. The growers can get hives in there, but they're terminal. They will never leave that.
And they won't move.
And they're actively baking at the same time. So
it's
if
insane.
you want to pollinate up there, charge about $1,000 a hive. Because that's what it's going to cost.
That's why berries are more expensive now. They pay for them.
Well,
It's a major, and like they're looking for they're trying to work out an owner reimbursement of costs for that. You know how when your red hives get killed out, you get reimbursement. Well, they've been affected by the response.
Yeah.
So it's like now they're trying to work out whether or not those growers who don't have pollination are going to be. Yeah.
It's almost the thing, like, what's the end game here? Because, like, you know, it's an off-take containment strategy, and
it's an eradication strategy at the moment, which is distinct from a containment strategy.
Yeah. But is it working? I guess, like, it seems like it's pretty, it is working.
It's definitely working. The hives that they're finding, the later ones, right, and you see the numbers keep crawling up and you think, oh, this is down in control.
Yeah.
But those hives, the later ones, are generally with much lower mite counts.
Okay.
Then at the start, the mite counts were huge. So I have seen a graph of that, but unfortunately it was confidential and but yes, it's tracking right down. And they believe that they know the edge, and that's why they're doing all the surveillance in the purple zone, is purely to prove that edge.
Because I mean, you know, you just see the graph growing, and you kind of sit there and go, there's other impacts of this guy, like pollination and things like that. So it's like, oh, that's what my follow-up practice will be. They're not working. What's the strategy around, you know, maintaining pollination? Is it like other, like, you know, promoting the sort of like hunting for flies and things like that? Just, you know.
There's a meeting going on tonight in Mangrove Mountain where I keep my bees, run by the Farmers Federation, talking about exactly this.
Yeah.
Like, what are they going to do there? I mean, it's small scale farming, but you know, how are they going to manage pollination there? And it's a legitimate question because no one up there is paying for pollination because it's such a bee-rich area normally. But the entire cropping, you know, community there, or the people who are, you know, it's a big citrus growing area. There's avocados, there's lots of stuff there. They're all, they've all planned and built themselves around the fact that they would get wild pollination from, you know, my 200 hives that are up there, and I don't charge anyone for it, but they're right next to all these orchards and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, so there's meetings going on right now about that. It's a big deal, like it is a big thing, but it is an eradication strategy which is distinct from a containment one. The containment ones are like, you know, when you enter somewhere, it's like don't bring fruit in a year, or don't, you know, you can't take these vines into the undervalley or whatever. We've got, yeah, it's an eradication strategy, and it appears to be slowing. The rate is slowing. They're still finding hives in the purple zone that have Varroa. And so instead of seeing like these big leaps, now we're sort of seeing this creep, right? And it's certainly still happening. So they're delineating that edge, they're finding it, but they're, you know, there's always these little movements while they do it. And they did say, there was a briefing not long ago, the Australian Honeybee Industry Council briefing, where they were saying we're expecting to find them in the purple zone. So they've said that, it's obviously part of their plan, you know. They are doing surveillance. They're doing huge amounts of surveillance. So they're going to capture it eventually.
What's the compensation on the hives destroyed?
Depends. If you're recreational, you get $500 for your brood box, basically. If you're commercial, it depends on how much gear you've got on and what the gear is. So if you've got 10 frame boxes, if you've got supers, you get paid for a queen exclude, you get paid for an M lock. It's different for commercial because each thing is given a value. But you get no compensation for your sites that you lose, which is sort of a point of friction at the moment. Just because the sites are with any commercial beekeeping sort of venture, and also recreational beekeeping. You lose your site, you've lost your capacity to beekeep, even if they've given you money to compensate you for the actual physical hive. That doesn't mean you can just go set up. You know, I was just saying before, the first blue zone north, on the coast, north of French's Forest, is Foster. It's purple and red all the way up there until you get to Foster. That's the first blue zone. So it's, you know,